The Ronald Reagan Party has convinced their base that drag queens in school is a major political issue, right? Even though that Ronald Reagan himself was a drag, you can even call him a drag queen fanatic, if you will, and more on that later. But working for the American people, for the school, Missouri has ranked 50th in teacher pay, not even paying them enough to make a livable wage. So here's a quote I found, and I always put links to the quotes and stuff like that I find. And this is according to kcur.org/education. Asking educators to sacrifice over the course of their life 25 to 30% of what their counterparts could be making is a lot to ask, Jones said. It's hard to make a case for a person coming out of college that they would go into education. State law sets the minimum teacher salary at 25,000, and the minimum salary for a full-time teacher with a master's degree with at least 10 years of public teaching experience at 33,000, and that's Missouri Statute 163.172, established July 1st of 2006. Legislature says that in Missouri have said that it's taken notice, and at the end of 2022 legislative session, the Missouri General Assembly passed a baseline salary grant to help schools districts pay teachers at least 38,000. The grant requires to be shared by the state 70% and the school district 30%. However, it still leaves the teachers behind the national average of 42,844 and under the national livable wage of 46,944. Furthermore, not all eligible Missouri districts applied for the grant, choosing not to raise teacher pay to a minimum of $38,000. But guys, it gets worse. Not only did we rank dead last in teacher pay, we also ranked 49th in school fundings. And in Missouri, the state funding accounts for about 32% per student. That places Missouri at a 49th nationally for a percentage of schools' resources coming from the state funding. As a result, schools rely heavily on local resources like property taxes to fund schools. The state is not stepping up to meet its needs of the students in Missouri, shifting the burden on the Missourians paying higher property taxes to support their schools. Auditor Galloway said, the opportunity for a quality education is key to ensure economic growth. And of course, everything trickles down, guys. I mean, every time you're talking about anything regarding funding and you're giving huge corporation tax breaks, that trickles down to you one way or another, and you end up with the burden of that. And also, here's another quote: the challenges can be much more daunting for school districts more than others, especially those districts in the urban core in major cities like Kansas City and St. Louis that were provisionally or recently accredited or remain unaccredited. Many smaller districts in rural areas face their own sets of challenges. State regulators have the power to make these improvements, but have neglected to do so. It seems that the needed changes will only happen when parents and state lawmakers demand them. Drag queen issues that we've convinced people of Missouri and people across the country that this is such a major issue. We got to remember guys like Ronald Reagan were such fanatics of drag queens that Ronald Reagan actually started in a movie with drag queens, right? He was so proud of the movie that when he became president, he actually showed it to the troops in 1988. This was in Camp David, and so for us to be now saying that the conservative movement is against drag queens and this is a major political issue, but forget everything else. You know, it's them trying to distract you from the actual issues that are going on here in Missouri and across the country as well. If you really cared about drag queens in schools, if you really were worried that they were actively trying to indoctrinate your child and go into schools and stuff like that, like the media has convinced you, you wouldn't be a Ronald Reagan fanatic. He wouldn't be your hero, right? So the whole fact that they're saying that It's a bunch of BS. And the people that are being directly affected are your children. Your children are not getting the proper education that they needed. We continue to fall behind in numbers around the world on education, and this is one of the major issues. And this is what happens: is a direct result of our politicians only really caring about the corporations that they work for, and providing them with huge tax breaks and stuff like that. So think about that whenever you're hearing these things coming out of. It doesn't matter if it's left wing or right wing media, and them trying to create this as a major issue, right? Because this is a non-issue in America. Just because one drag queen read to a group of kids doesn't mean it's happening across the country. And even if it was happening, let's remember the children that were in the movie with Ronald Reagan watching drag queen shows, the very thing that they're blaming the other party to do for doing. And honestly, if we're having to argue about social issues, we don't have a democracy. We have a corporate run country that pins people against each other, all in the name of avoiding taxes and putting their politicians in office.